Hello Internet, this is me, film's biggest uncultured dude. Today we're checking out How Marvel Destroyed Itself by Cinelumi. This video popped up in my recommendation. Finally, YouTube understood what I do for a living and brought me the package straight on my front page. This is definitely a video that doesn't look like I would review it, but here it is. Video essay, How Marvel Destroyed Itself.
Avengers!
When Marvel released Avengers Endgame in 2019, it was the epic peak of the MCU.
Yeah, and that's kind of the problem. Am I crazy? Or a lot of people don't seem to know this. But the MCU kind of been feeling underwhelming the past few years is because right before that we had two Avenger movies where it peaked. Is that hard to accept or understand? Infinity War was that good, and that is a curse in itself.
Marvel had a problem. This happened to Iron Man.
You can rest now.
Right, spoiler alert, sorry.
And Captain America turned into this guy.
Maybe I'll try some of that life Tony was telling me to get.
For the first time in more than a decade, the MCU was a clean slate. So what was next?
They began reinventing themselves. The cinematic universe are not pushing out more world-ending scenarios by cosmic beings. They call that Phase 4.
More projects in less years because of all the amazing stuff we're now allowed to do on Disney+.
Yes, we got a lot of content fast. Marvel released 10 movies and 10 miniseries in just 3 years.
Yet, strangely, that's less than every year before that, including 2020, which included 0 films because production issues caused by COVID.
Yet, strangely enough, it feels like all the content is going nowhere. But why? For years, cultivated the characters of their main franchise heroes, namely the leaders of the superheroes, Iron Man and Captain America. When we first met Tony Stark, he was nothing more than an irresponsible rich playboy. But then, he gets a wake-up call. When he's kidnapped by terrorists, it forces him to start becoming more responsible.
That's what you took from 10 years of movies. Characters were responsible, now they're not. Who gives a f?
Introduced Steve Rogers as Captain America not long after Iron Man, but he was almost the exact opposite of Tony. He wants nothing more than to sacrifice himself for his country during World War II.
Come on, there are men laying down their lives. I got no right to do any less than them.
But he isn't healthy enough to be a soldier. So he takes an experimental serum to make him strong, and he sacrifices himself to take down a plane carrying weapons of mass destruction.
Steve?
He survived, of course, and we saw him take charge and become a confident leader. But when the arcs of Iron Man and Captain America concluded, Marvel had to find new stars for their franchises, like Falcon, the former sidekick to Captain America.
So all this hate, fuss is about Sam Wilson becoming the new Captain America? The sidekick is supposed to take Captain America's place?
He was a familiar face, but we didn't learn much about who he was, besides a veteran with a troubled past.
You lose someone? My wingman, Riley.
Then, at the end of Endgame, Steve passes along his shield to Falcon. Suddenly, a sidekick was supposed to become Captain America. But how would Marvel transform Captain America's friend into Captain America himself?
Because the new Captain America didn't have a backstory and him becoming Captain America is rushed. Steve Rogers and Sam Wilson might have the same title, but everyone would know and not care about the two being the same. That's the difference.
So the series ends up focusing a lot more on who Steve was, instead of who Falcon is or will become. So when he finally does accept the shield near the end of the series, it feels rushed. The moment he was kidnapped by terrorists, Steve sacrifices his life, but Falcon almost just wandered into the decision. Like he made the choice off-screen and then told us about it. And in a way, it's still about Steve.
It doesn't matter what Steve thought.
So Falcon ends up feeling like he's still a side character for most of his own series. And after Endgame, a lot of new characters entered the MCU, like Shang-Chi, the Eternals, and the Marvels. But with these characters, it feels like the MCU is aiming for quantity over quality. Before Endgame, Marvel had a storyline centered around 6 major heroes who made up the original Avengers.
What about Tom Holland, Black Panther, and Guardians of the Galaxy? With this quantity and not quality?
Marvel focused on developing these key heroes, so we became more invested in them, and it was a lot easier to get behind them.
Kevin, you put us in a position where
And the superheroes aren't the only issue. A big part of making the MCU work is having a strong central villain character, like Thanos. Thanos made an appearance 7 years before Endgame in the first Avengers movie. And for years, the MCU carefully set up the plot of Infinity War and Endgame with the placement of the Infinity Stones and other connectors. These all pointed to a looming battle with Thanos. Now, a new villain has entered the universe, Kang. There's only one problem. We've only seen him in one movie, and we haven't seen any connections between Kang's story and the rest of the characters in the MCU.
So I didn't just watch a full season of Loki centered on Kang and his variants. Secondly, Avengers Kang Dynasty has still 2 full years still to be released. Talk about being rushed from Lady Pace.
Right now, there's no big reason to rally behind the heroes. The question remains, will they ever have a moment as powerful as this again? Or will we be left asking after every new release,
Iron Man.
what's the point?
They're reinventing themselves with the new Phase 4 and Phase 5, and if it feels different than the Infinity Saga, it's because it is. And only time will tell of the production decisions they made in the right or wrong directions. This film essay gets a 7 out of 10 from me. Goodbye.